Underway. All right, so as we get into what harmonic wave convergence is, let's do a quick review of the old paradigm and the new paradigm. All right. The old paradigm has lagging indicators. It's just a reality. Because they have lagging indicators, they have to cover those swing lows and swing highs that they lagged to get entry on. And so they have big stops. You have to cover those lows and highs. They're going to end up with very low dollars per pip. Most green traders don't understand a pip is not a pip. Okay, the pip is your real measure of profit, how much dollars you have in that pip, and that's totally determined. When you match up accounts, same to same account size, same risk into the trade, same gain in pips, same type of account, standard, mini, micro, whatever. Plus the same gain of pips. The only thing that differs the degree of profitability is the size of the stop loss. So with our 310 stop loss system, we don't suffer what the old paradigm traders do, and that's a low profit per pip. It's a tough psychological road when you're trading with 100, 150 pip, 200 pip stop losses, even 50 pip compared to what we do. It's a tough psychological road. Again, people will embellish the negative sign in front of a stop out. It increases the size in their head of the severity of the loss. Because they achieve slow growth, even if they are successful traders, you'll have a high percentage of old paradigm traders burn out. The old 95% of traders fail. That's not true. A good many of them do dust their accounts, but a larger portion quit because they've put in all those hours and now they finally have achieved success. And unless their ability to jump in and trade a $100,000 account, which they don't, you just don't do that, and they start with normal sized accounts, they're going to burn out. They just can't make the profits because the dollar per pip is so small. New paradigm, we have real-time indicators. Real-time, essentially leading indicators. Why? Because they're predictive of what's going to happen immediately thereafter. So it's not just real time, it's leading time. We have a 310 stop loss system. It's the highest dollar per pip in the Forex. There's nothing better. You just can't get, when you max out, you can't get any better. Our system complements your psychological growth. You don't need to go to third-party books and third-party, trader mindset courses. That's what you need in the old paradigm when you're trading in a realm of you don't know. It's funny to watch Facebook in the various trading groups and people so trying to figure out where price is going. That's why the analysts, FX Daily, FX 360, blah, 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 blah. A trader wouldn't go to them if they knew what price was doing when it was doing it. But people are trying to figure out where price is going. Either to get into a trade or to get out of a trade. So we have the quickest growth possible with the lowest risk. We have a very low risk, high yield system. All right, so our trademark reality is harmonic wave convergence. And so for those that struggle a little with harmonic wave convergence, the concept of teaching it is based on Elliott wave. Don't let that scare you. But all we've done is taken a move, and I'll try and move you through it here in just a couple of minutes worth. We take a move on the chart And let's look at number 2 here with our green wave. This is a time period, and we can call it whatever we want. And we're going from the start of that wave to the end of the wave. Now, if you don't know what I mean by wave, that's okay. You know, it's not going to be a straight line. You know, that green line is going to have ups and downs inside of it. But we're talking about that at that time period. And say, why would we call that a bottom and a top of the wave? Because when we bring it down the multi-wave, it tells us that that was the bottom. And so we know that's the bottom of the move. And it tells us that's the top. There's the top of the channel. So we know that's the top of the channel. And again, the bottom. Very often, not only can you just see that, you can actually draw the trend lines for the channel boundaries, and they're perfect. So that's one time frame. We drop down a time frame. Let's say this is 10 minutes. Let's say this was 30 over here. Let's say this is 10 minutes down here at number 3. And again, we're measuring the same move. You know, what I mean by that is this top is this top here. And this bottom is this bottom here. It's just now we have a smaller wave, and it's going to go to, in its own channel, it's going to have its own tops and bottoms. So that would be a 10-minute channel, which is part of or makes up that 30-minute wave, or the green wave, that goes from bottom to top. And as you can see, when we do that and we bring it down the multi-wave, that is the top of the channel and that is the bottom of the channel. So once again, the relative nature of multi-wave, relatively speaking, that's the top of the channel. Relatively speaking, that's the bottom of the channel. And then we could go inside of this last move here as an example of that 10-minute wave and now call this a 1-minute wave. And again, same thing. We're measuring that last wave of the 10 minutes, but inside of it, there's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not necessarily. It might be 8 waves. It might be 3. Again, the concept of Elliott wave is what we're matching here. Harmonic wave convergence is not an Elliott wave system. These are not Elliott wave termination points, so don't try and do a count on this. It's not what we're talking about. We're using Elliott wave to describe how the waves between multiple time periods really work. And so in that 1-minute system, same thing. The yellow wave that started down here and went up to there to the top of the channel, its own channel right here, that move right there is this. And so now I have a 1-minute channel. And I have 1-minute tops and 1-minute bottoms, and 1-minute tops and 1-minute bottoms. And now you have something that is pretty cool, because in terms of what we do is something that nobody else does. And you know, the reality of harmonic wave convergence is it represents multiple time frame wave exhaustion synchronization. Because in the top left, we know something about this big green wave. We know it could end anywhere in a range like that. It's got its own little box, its own little slush. But we know that green wave doesn't actually come to a resting point until this gold wave does too. And we know the gold wave has come to its resting point because the last of the 1-minute waves has come to its resting point. And that point where they all meet is harmonic wave convergence. We're just able to take this channel and this channel and this channel and throw all of that down into one channel, which is a cool feat, mainly because nobody else is doing it yet. And so I can see the green, it goes from the bottom to the top. And the gold's a little hard to see in here. I'll just color it blue. So there's the blue. That's the 10-minute wave. let's say, coming up there to meet the 30-minute. And then we have the 1-minute wave, which we have as in red here. You know, lots of tops and bottoms on that 1-minute wave until the last one comes up here. So what's pretty interesting is with all these 1-minute wave tops, I'm not interested in that one or 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 that one, blah, blah. I'm just interested in one particular 1-minute wave, and that's when its top matches the 10-minute top, and when the 10-minute top matches the 30-minute top, and we can see all that come to a point on our charts. And now my 30-minute wave that typically has that kind of big exhaustion, if we just look at it by itself, we've narrowed it down because of subwaves and subwaves and subwaves to just a little spot on the chart. It's about 2 to 3 pips wide. So what we're doing, again, with harmonic wave convergence is really multiple time frame wave exhaustion synchronization. So in the wave periods exhaust themselves on all of the charts at the same time, we've exhausted that particular move at whatever the highest level is we're looking at. It's really simple, but it's really cool too. Now, what helps you understand this in terms of reading the indicator is an understanding, and I've called it waveology, and it's the understanding of this concept of Elliott wave, this concept of what harmonic wave convergence really is. You know, to drive it to the technical side of Elliott wave, you know, we have impulsive moves and corrective moves, and this picture shows again within each kind of bigger move the sub-level, and then inside that sub-level the lower level to it. And so in this bigger X to 1 wave, you see there is this reality of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the impulsive side. And in the smaller 1 wave, it is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And in that smaller wave, 1 wave, there is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there is actually a counting methodology to Elliott wave, but the concept is exactly the same, because guess what? This is a measured environment in Elliott wave in terms of typically Fibonacci, not an absolute pips, in terms of projections as to where the next waves everything is. But, you know, you pick, let's take the subwave here, this 1 wave on the inside. When it turns around and goes to the 2 wave, the reality is that wave has exhausted itself, and we know how to measure a wave exhaustion. We don't know that it's an Elliott wave. We don't know if it's a 1, a 5, an 18, a 22, a Z. All we know is that wave has exhausted itself. But the innards, the construction, is exactly the same. Lower level converging with the next level up, converging with the next level up, converging with the next level up. And so waveology includes things like understanding that this gray wave that does the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 inside this X to 1 move is cycling that darker gray up. It has an impulsive side to it. It has a corrective side. It has an impulsive side. It has a corrective side. And then it has an impulsive side. And as you note, just a side note, those corrections have to take place. You can't get up to the holy grail of the pips if you're taking yourself out here because you see your trading station eroding off, dollars. You have to allow it to come back so this thing can take off again. And once again, same thing here. You can't take yourself out of the trade there. And this is why you have to understand waveology a little. If you don't understand it, you're going to be so protective of the erosion of pips that you're going to take yourself out of these opportunities. That makes sense? So waveology helps. You don't have to be able to, like count waves and tell me give me within 99%, within 1% where the 3 is going to end. Don't worry about Elliott wave at that level. And for gosh sakes, don't try and trade Elliott wave. Don't be an Elliott wave counter. All right. So let's come back to this slide. Once again, the significance here. Now you can see the gold wave a little better. Notice what that gold wave is doing. You don't have to worry about a count. The waveology that I want you to understand is from their common convergence. If that green wave is going to go from one end of the spectrum to the other, in other words, it's actually moving impulsively up, as I've drawn it, this gold wave has to cycle. This move here, as I follow the gold wave to its extreme here, that does not mark the end of my green wave move. This is not an exit point. I have one exit point that's going to be a gold wave. Where is it? Over here. Not here. Not here at the gold wave top. Not here at the gold wave top. Here, when it's merging and converging with the upper level wave. Likewise, if we drop down one more level, that's not the end of my big move, if that's my 1 minute wave. Here's my 1 minute wave converging with a 10-minute wave. That's still not the end of my 30-minute move. It moves the 10 wave up. What's happening here? This movement up and down with my 1 minute wave is cycling up my 10-minute wave until it can go no farther. And then it's going to cycle down. And that whole while, this 10-minute wave, the gold wave, if you will, is cycling up and down to lift the 30-minute wave up to the top. So again, it's the multiple time frame consideration, the cycling of waves. We have an advantage of seeing it on one indicator. Don't let that mess you up. Don't take the best advantage a Forex trader can have and make it something negative. All right. So in that, I want to talk a little bit about what it looks like, maybe, if I've got my notes right. So what I want you to pay attention to down here in the bottom indicator, watch my green wave. So we have a convergence here. Okay. And we have the green wave come down, it goes up, and it's cycling. And notice as the green wave is cycling, my yellow wave is being brought down. That is cycling the wave. Okay. Who said I was organized? I said I was organized? Ha. So a couple of things about Elliott wave that we will take advantage of because they appear as constructs of how price moves. And one of them is the 1-2 move, and we're going to take a look at a diagram of that a little later on. The other would be the 4 move. But let's talk about this then 2 to 3 move. Because remember, inside of it, there's a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So once you understand the waveology, once you understand this, the Elliott wave reality of price, you can use it for trade entry, trade manipulation, etc. in terms of money management, in terms of minimizing your risk. See, once I know this 2 wave is finished and we're headed up here, the very first thing I should expect is some little burst and then a pullback from that burst. And when that pullback ends and we start going up, that is a great place for a secondary entry. It's a safer one than this right here after the bigger 1-2. Now we're just talking about in general terms. We're not talking about this our system. Just talking about general in an abstract way. If I was naked trading. And we'll talk about how we know this is probably a 2 wave here by some attributes that the 2 wave has. I also can have certain understandings of the 4 wave, which tends to be shallower and a little bit more elongated. And I know something about that 4 wave. If I can see this structure here at all, anything that resembles that, wow, I've got it made, because the reality of this 4th wave is it can come down no farther, and this is an interesting number, than 17% into wave 1. So there's the top of wave 1. So that would be 17% down, or another way of saying it, 83% of wave 1. So what does that mean? That means I know this can't come below that line. If it does, this whole structure that I was looking at is done. It's toast. It's not legitimate. But I could watch that come down. Now, true Elliott wave, it can't come down below the top of the 1, but Prechter and his boys look at it in terms of the Forex, and they've decided that a 17% leeway is doable in the Forex. I don't need to research all the whys of that. I take their word for it. I draw my line. I calculate my wave 1. I do 83% of it. I draw a red line, and I know that. Which is really cool, because if price actually gets up here, guess what? My stop loss gets to be moved right below that line. Because I know if it comes back here, everything I was thinking about what was going on up here is wrong. Otherwise, it's going to bounce somewhere in here, and my stop loss is at a safe place. So knowing where this wave 4 may come down is very significant. It's a great stop loss tool. It's a great money management tool. So we know something about this 1-2. We're going to talk about that later. We know about the 1, 2, 3, 4, how far it can actually come back down. And the other thing from Elliott wave that we want to learn a little bit about is our ABC move. So we have a move up, harmonic wave convergence, wave exhaustion in terms of Elliott wave, but harmonic wave convergence in terms of what we look like, and then we're going to have some sort of correction off of that. And this is particularly true for what we call retracements and snake in the grass. If you don't know what a snake in the grass is, you haven't been plugging in at all in the last several years. We'll talk about it a little. This here is a snake in the grass. But a snake in the grass is just upside down here. What it means is the upper level wave has so much upward pressure it can't fall down even with pullbacks. Notice essentially this pullback and this pullback, the blue wave doesn't even flinch. Your lower level waves are more sensitive, so they'll pull back, but that wave doesn't even pull back. And so what that tells us is price, normally is going to go back up. Now it might do it in a wave, but normally price is going to a higher high. Sometimes it'll come back and finish, a correction and then go to the higher high. But with that wave doing that, the pressure is so big upward that blue wave can't even pull back even when price does. Pretty interesting how that works sometimes. So 3 things: the 1-2 wave, the 4 wave coming back, and the ABC. It's about all you really need to know about Elliott wave. In terms of where does the 3 wave come in, how do I measure that 3 wave so I have some sense of where that might end? Well, there's measurements in terms of Fibonacci. I can measure my wave 1. I can measure my wave 1 and project. It's called an expansion off wave 2. I could project up or expand up. There's waves, and then there's certain Fibonacci levels for this. Well, guess what? All of that's been established and essentially programmed, if you will, into your Fibonacci tool in your Pro Charts. And if you're a Pip Club trader, you have those numbers. Even if you don't use Pro Charts, those numbers belong in your Fibo tools regardless of the chart you're on. And we have some very specific numbers by some very specific geniuses in terms of people who have committed years and looked at thousands of moves. I was reading over the weekend one of the guys who developed a lot of the Fibo work and some additional work that he has, and I've got a brand new Fibo number that I started putting on charts over the weekend. Blows me away. Well, as he would, we both talk the same lingo there. It's not a Fibonacci. We call it a Fibonacci because we put it in our Fibonacci tool. It's a retracement. It has some derivatives Fibonacci, but it's not a Fibonacci. It's just a percentage that shows up a huge amount of times. Hadn't used it in trading in 12, 13 years. And just a little bit more research and uncovered it, and boom, I see all sorts of trade opportunities with it now. Pretty amazing. So we always, to be the Elliott wave trader, why do we care about these lines? See, an Elliott wave trader would care about them because he's saying price should reverse at one of those. If this was his 1 wave and he's trying to find his 3 up here, why do we care about them? Because whichever one it hits and lands on and starts to breathe off of, rest a little, if we have harmonic wave convergence down here, now we've got an ideal trade. So we have this timing mechanism called harmonic wave convergence. So we can better trade things like Elliott wave projections. But those projections are already preloaded into our Fibonacci. That's pretty cool. So we talked about cycling. I want to point out a couple of things about cycling. Let me look here. This is a good example. I'll be able to cover a couple of things with this. Let me bring this over. Okay, so what I want you to see here is on this chart, the white is our 1 minute peak 3, or peak, excuse me. Call it peak. The yellow is something we call power 10. I'll explain the differences between these. And the blue here is our peak 30. All in one channel. Excuse my writing, I'm trying to go fast. And so notice the 1 minute wave from this point on. Notice how it cycles down the 10-minute wave. So our 10-minute wave is making a beeline. It's doing some cycling, coming down. And notice the 1 minute wave is cycling in order to bring it down. You'll also notice that the 1 minute wave sometimes goes all the way to the top, sometimes it doesn't. Notice it goes to the tops here. That's because we have an upward move. And it doesn't reach the bottom all the time. When it doesn't, that's because there's strong upward pressure and it can't fully come all the way back down. In this case, the 10-minute is coming down, and so you'll notice the 1 minute wave is hitting the bottoms on the on the chart here, but it can't stretch up and hit the tops here. And again, that's because we have strong downward pressure here. And that shows up in the price continuing to kind of fall down. So enough. What I'm pointing out here is this cycling, the absolute cycling of the waves. That's a little bit of waveology there. Being able to read that cycle. So as we kind of start looking or drifting towards peak 3, I want to point out a little bit of the difference between it and multi-wave. So we have multi-wave in the top channel and our peak / TAB29 in the bottom channel. That's how our orientation always will be. And, again, your 30-minute wave is making its move from the top to the bottom. The 1 minute wave is doing its best to cycle it down. Notice how it gets tighter and tighter and tighter. 1 minute wave can't reach up here anymore because there's such downward pressure. So we come down here to what is a convergence point. But look at the difference between the two systems now. So this would be a 30-minute convergence, and I know a lot of traders wouldn't take this. Okay, because why? You got sliders, you got some of these waves sliding in. We don't like that. We've got, the 10-minute wave's already snaking, but that's okay. It's just as other waves are sliding. So it's not the best 30-minute harmonic wave convergence there as far as how we would rate that. What we don't have to worry about here with peak 3 is things like lower level leading upper level. They will resolve themselves. And the only thing we need to look at is for the green wave, in this case, it'll be green or white, the 1 minute wave, to break the bottom and actually turn up. We call that a hook back. So it hits the bottom and it hooks back up. And when that occurs, we're looking for green bars to light up. And we could do that on a candle close and generally be able to get into a trade. So it's a little bit cleaner. It's a lot less confusing. But what really, when you get down to it, then what really is the peak 3? What drives it? Why is it special? So let me do a little blackboard work there and show you. When you think of harmonic wave convergence, we have a 30-minute wave going to an extreme. We have, I'll make it a little thicker. We have a 10-minute wave going to and extreme. I don't have purple, so I'm going to have to use red for my 5-minute wave. I have 5-minute wave going to extreme, and I got my 1 minute. So we're using, and each one of these comes from a separate time period. 30, 10, 5, 1 as I've drawn it. And we got a pretty darn clear thing here going on. It's just sometimes you do get that lower level leading upper level. In other words, instead of the 30 being the first one there, maybe the 5-minute gets there first. And those generally are not going to be the big moves. They're going to retrace and come up to a higher high. But there are just enough, as you know, if you've been trading multi-wave, most of you bronze and silver traders in the last 3 to 6 months have noticed, we go through this rating process to evaluate what this really looks like. What is the ideal 10? What is a 9? What is an 8? I'd say what maybe 50% or more of the trades posted were 7s. You guys would go back, and I'm not saying you called it wrong. A lot of those we were on the same page on as far as how they would be graded. So there's a variety of looks to how clean this could be, which is what some people have struggled with. William. Am I missing something? Yeah, go ahead, Zoe. They were posted in the group. So we go through this grading process. And the thing is, I wanted to make it even cleaner. So I spent a lot of years working on that. And this is now the evolution of what we have here. So what I looked at was, and we'll see evidence of why I was able to do this a little later, I looked at about 12 to 13, I don't remember the exact count right now because it goes back a couple of years, of what were really, if you were to go and research reversal or turnaround indicators, would be an A, not an O, a turnaround indicator. If you were to look and find out what the best of them were, what are the top 10, what are the top 15, I started with that list. And I knew I wanted to get something that was in the 3 to 4 range. I wanted to get 3 or 4 turnaround indicators that could be tweaked. In other words, the formula for them or the parameters for them could be tweaked to where they would all say you have a reversal at this point in time. And then if that was true, I could then average them and get a single plot that represented 4 indicators. Now, let's be clear about something. If I have indicator number 1, and let's say this is our 89 extreme, which is our reversal zone. If I have one indicator that says, oh, I think your trend is ended, and I have another one that says, oh, I think your trend is ended, and I have another one that says, oh, your trend didn't end until here. If I average those 3, I am going to get a single plot that shows up right there. But these aren't 3 very good experts, even though I got an average, which is what I wanted to see. I would rather see 3, and in my case we have 4, or in our case we have 4, but I would rather see 4 that say indicator number 1, 2, and 3. Indicator number 1 says, oh, the trend is ended right there. And indicator number 2 says, oh, the trend is ended right there. And indicator number 3 says, oh, the trend is ended right there. Now, statistically, when we average those, we get this exact same thing here as we got over here. It's just the second one has a little bit more meat to it. Because at some point, this is going to give me trouble. Even though they average out nicely and give me an exhaustion point right on my exhaustion my exhaustion line, I would rather have those three experts look like that. So that's what's been done. So when you see a green line representing peak 1, there's 4 separate indicators that comprise that single plot. So this 1 minute extreme is much more accurate than this 1 minute extreme because that's just a single wave. This is 4 that are combined and all agree that this is the reversal point. Let me put it this way. If I got 4 really good traders, I'm talking about, 7-figure traders, which would you rather have? One of them standing behind you saying, yes, Billy Bob, now's the time to enter, now's the time to exit, or 4 of them, assuming all 4 would agree. All 4 say, Zoe, stay out of the trade right now. Or all 4 say, Zoe, time to get in the trade. Don't make the mistake of seeing one plot and thinking it's just one indicator. This is why I say your peak system is multi-wave on steroids, because there's such more reliability. Now, some other things were done with this, because not only is it 4 that are actually in one, but some of these have certain attributes that help smooth things out. And so when they're added together, not only do they give you the turnaround, but it's just a cleaner look. It's not as jagged and rough and sawtooth as multi-wave is. Look, I invented multi-wave. I think it's the greatest thing in the world. It's just this is multi-wave on steroids. How else can I say it? Now, I took it one step further for our 10-minute, because the 10-minute is a very valuable tool for us, both at low level and high level waves. Well, high level meaning 30-minute, even 1 hour. So to help declutter this channel of multi-wave, which, as I drew this 30, 10, 5, we also have a 3-minute in there. What I've done is I've taken the peak 3 for the 10, the 5, and the 3 and averaged those. And we call that, instead of calling that the peak 10, because it has a 10, a 5, and a 3 in it, we call it a power 10. The power 10 is the peak 10, the peak 5, and the peak 3 all averaged together. So this single plot is 12 different experts from 3 time periods saying, Zoe, enter the trade. Zoe, stay out of the trade. One plot, 12 indicators. Ooh, ah. The Power 10 is designed only for the 1-minute chart. You could put it on other charts, but we don't like taking lower level waves and moving them upstream. We like taking upper level waves and moving them downstream. That's where the clarity and the detail and the microscope works. If you want to look at Jupiter, or if you want to look at Saturn's rings, saw a story the other day where Saturn changed colors. They're trying to figure out why. If you want to see Saturn's rings, you don't use a microscope. You don't want to take the small level and move it up. You want to take the upper level and move it down. Bring me some of those ice crystals from Saturn's rings and let me look at that under my microscope. Okay. All right, so we talked about what peak 3 is. We talked about each standard peak, so peak 1, peak 3, peak 5, peak 10. Those are all 4 waves in one. We show how they work in concert. They don't disagree with each other. Out of the 12, 13 indicators that were available, I specifically went for the ones that when they agreed, they all agreed. When they disagreed, they all disagreed. And so they worked in concert, which are very powerful. And when you get to those moments where one of them doesn't like it so much and the other do, it generally shows up. The indicator says not now because it doesn't have full compliance. So the peak as an indicator is definitely multi-wave on steroids. All right, so what we really need to do then is look at the rest of this indicator channel that we call TAB29, which is going to include trend bars. And I'll just go here to explain trend bars a little. Now, we can size them, and I prefer to do this for my visual orientation. I shrink this field here. You can raise or lower that bar. I shrink it down to where these individual bars merge into one. So this looks like one thick green bar or one thick red bar. It's really 6 different bars in there. Oh, let me just show you. I'll bring over this chart here. So I'll just grab that field and stretch it out, and you'll see if I take it up high enough, I'll get the separation in those green bars. They separate in the red bars. Those trend bars will separate out. When I bring it down and I get it just the right level, the lines between them disappear, and I just have what I need to see. And it's pretty easy then to line up, you know, all green, all red. So what really is going on in these trend bars? It's a additional benefit. So again, you know, we have turnaround indicators. I put 4 of them into each one of these waves. There's 12 of them in the power of 10. Here's 9 more indicators. So what ends up happening is the first 5 bars are single indicators. The 6th bar is an average of 4 indicators. So there's essentially a total of 9 indicators in this space. And the way they work is pretty simple. I put a stochastics on here just to show you. Now stochastics will work very well in the 1 minute, 3 minute levels. We'll see how it works. And so what I did was, let me find an extreme like over here on the left. Now again, these are very small channels up here, so don't worry too much about what price is doing. Let's just focus on the indicator channel for a minute. What essentially I did was to say, if I have a flip here, okay, I want to know when. And it just so happens that stochastics, at least the short-term stochastics with a specific setting, is trend bar number 1. As a shredder trader, I'm interested in the reversals only. So I'm interested when it topples over at the top, and I'm interested when it crosses over and rises up on the bottom. At the point it does up here, that trend bar is colored, that first trend bar is colored red. At the point down here where it topples over on the bottom, that first trend bar is colored green. And the reality is, as a trader who's trading tops and bottoms, I don't care about everything else in this indicator. All that space means nothing to me. I just want to know when it gets to the bottom and it flips, or it gets to the top and it flips. So what we've done here then, by this indicator field, the trend bars, actually equaling 9 indicators, is I've saved a hell of a lot of real estate. Because I don't have to have a channel that looks like that. I could represent all of that in one little tiny line here in this trend bar. So we have reversal indicators that are telling us when the turns have come over and not come over. Now, why could we do something like stochastics, which would be considered an old school and old paradigm indicator? That's because from the absolute peak, now we're on a 1 minute chart here, at the absolute peak of a 1 minute top to it flipping and giving us an indication it's in the other direction is typically about 1 to 2 pips. Since we use a 3-pip stop loss system, I can actually get this turn inside my stop loss, which is what I'm looking to do. So I can use some of these, not all of them, I can use some old school indicators on my 1 minute chart, and even though they lag, the lag is so small that it's tradable in our 310 stop loss system. And again, that whole system came about because that was the objective, to change what the Forex was. Instead of a system where you have slow growth because the dollar per pip was so small, let me have extremely tight stops so I could put my risk into a tight stop, and therefore every 10 pips my trade goes, I'm making 2% on my account. Every 10 pips. Remember, the guy with a 100 pip stop loss, in order for him to make 200 pips, that trade has to go plus 100 pips. If we're in that same trade and we go 100 pips, we've made 20%, he's made 2. So we're making 10 times the profit. This is why this is such a valuable tool, the 310 stop loss. But it's not just arbitrary, we can deal with it. And so the indicator is designed to accommodate the 310 stop loss. Because at the 1 minute level, I can have certain turnaround indicators that will function and actually show me a flip within 1 to 2. Now the problem with these indicators is then you cannot, which is why the old paradigm sucks, because everything has to be scaled as you move up. All right. As I move to something like a 30-minute chart, now this is a 30-minute chart, and I put these on just for fun, trend bars, same stochastics driven, and what you'll see in a lot of these is that when you top out, sometimes you have to have so much erosion before this thing will actually flip. And, if you look at scale over here, 10 pip channels, if I have something that spans a channel and a half or whatever, that means this thing is giving me a lag of 10 to 15 pips at the 30-minute level. That's not tradable with our 310 stop loss system. So while I can physically put trend bars on my 30-minute chart, and I could do things like stochastics, yeah, it works if you're trading a 50 pip stop loss. It works if you're trading, a 30 pip stop loss. It doesn't work when you're trading a 3 pip stop loss. The lag is too big. So guess what? We don't trade it. We don't need to, because if I can time the end of my 30-minute wave with the end of my 10-minute wave and the end of my 1-minute wave, and I know when that 1-minute wave is ended because I have indicators that are very precise at the 1-minute level, I know exactly when that 30-minute wave is ended. So I don't need trend bars on my 30-minute chart. So what we typically look for, on a trend bar move is a candle close on our 1-minute chart. And typically we can get, and it's better, suited when you have 5 pip channels. This is 10, but this is a 30-minute chart. So if we are on a 1-minute chart, if we have 5 pip channels, you would see the candles look this size, which means they're typically, 1 to 3 pips maybe. You move to a 10-minute channel, sometimes 2 to 4. when a candle will move and close within that distance and flip all 6 of the bars. So the question here, I got a pop quiz question. Do I need all 6 trend bars to be either green or red to take a trade? Let me see from those peak 3 people that have been around. I got somebody saying no, but that person will take a trade with anything, so I don't know how to interpret their no. Generally speaking, so actually it's a little bit of a trick question to my existing peak traders. No, even 10-minute bars have to flip in order for it depends. Look, you don't have to stage this. I don't have to have trend bars flip on my 1 minute, my 5 minute, my 10 minute for there to be a 30-minute trade. Remember, all I need for a 30-minute trade is to have my 30-minute wave exhaust, my 10-minute wave exhaust, and my 1-minute wave exhaust. So when I know this is the 1-minute wave, that is the 10-minute wave extreme, that is the 30, all I need to know is to get a flip on that 1-minute chart. I don't need to see it on the 10. I don't need to see it on the 30. That wasn't my question. My question is, assuming this was a 1-minute chart, should I really see all 6 of them be green or red before I take a trade? Now, as I've taught it from a literal standpoint, the answer is yes. But there will be freak times where you're going to have a white bar, maybe more than one. What is a white bar? A white bar means, as I looked at the indicators, let's say something like stochastics, I caught it, a 1-minute candle close, caught it at the exact moment where the value for each wave plot was exactly the same. One was not leading the other out to 2 decimal points. So because one is not leading the other, those are colored white. But if I have 5 reds and 1 white, that white is then the same as a red. If I have 4 greens and 2 whites, those whites can be considered as if they're green. So they are neutral, and you can match them up to whatever color is in the direction of your move. So that would be the only exception that you really wouldn't want to have the trend bars in your favor in tab 29. Well, see, it was worth staying up and learning something. Here's one thing you learned. As I said, a lot of you guys have been around and very plugged in. This is not so much breaking news as it is just bringing it all together in one spot. One comment I want to make about trend bars. They are not continuation bars. They are not trend continuation bars. These are absolutely measuring the flips on 1-minute waves. So it's not going to stay 100% red in a down move. It's not going to stay 100% green in an up move. The various stages of a move, so let's look at my 1-minute wave coming up to an extreme, and it pulls back a little, and then it goes the rest of the way. So there are going to be some indicators that get tricked, and they think that's the reversal point, when the reality is the reversal point's up here. So some of them are going to get tricked. Same thing in the opposite direction. So you're going to see these, there's plenty of times where you have a variety of color, if you will, in the same space. We got some greens and reds. We got some greens and reds. Got some greens and reds. It's just various guys they're not in agreement that this is actually a flip. Some of them say it is, some of them say it isn't. That's why we like unanimity. That's why we want everybody to agree. When everybody agrees, it's a flip. Now here's the whole point of the T4s. Is this going to give you trades that have more pips than you would have made with multi-wave? No. What this does is it prevents stop outs. It takes away about 50 to 75% of the stop outs you get in multi-wave. That's why it's multi-wave on steroids. You eliminate 50 to 75% of the minus threes you would get with multi-wave. Why? Because I have, guess what? If you where's my should be in this sequence somewhere. Well, getting ahead of myself. So trend bars are not a continuation indicator. I mean, making that point very strong. The reason it's multi-wave on steroids is right here. Let's look at this for a second. So we said the first 5 bars are single indicators. The 6th bar is 4 that are averaged. So in those 6 bars, we have 9 indicators. Let's come down and look at our green plot, which is on our 1-minute chart here. That would be our 1-minute peak. Remember, there's 4 indicators in that plot. Our 30-minute wave here, there's 4 indicators in that plot. And our power 10 has 4 indicators from 3 different time frames averaged. There's 12 indicators in that plot. So as you see this channel right here, there are 29 indicators giving you direction about where trades are and are not. And that there's just nothing in the market that does that. And so the name is from tops and bottoms with 29 indicators. And once you read this thing, then it's very powerful. And the thing is, don't try and be the trader who has ego and thinks you know more than these guys with huge experience of thousands of trades that are selected as your expert advisors. And I don't mean expert advisor in the MT4 world. These are not robots. These are true expert trading advisors, if you will, who agree when there is a turnaround, and when they don't agree, it's just not worthy of it. You want them to agree. When they agree, you have a trade. You have a higher percent chance of the being a burst out of that move because they agreed at the time. Now that burst might only be 4 or 5 pips sometimes. But that's enough room for you to, if it starts turning around on you, that'll be more than enough room for you to get out of the trade, and you still get out at 0 plus 1 plus 2. In multi-wave, if you have a burst and it's enough to get in, sometimes that burst turns around on you really fast, and next thing you know, you're minus 3, minus 2, minus 3. So, you know, the advantage to peak 3, excuse me, the advantage to tab 29 is it minimizes the number of stop outs, the false entries, if you will, which is why you want to listen to it. All right. So what I want to do here is, you know, totally unplanned. we're just going to go look at a few things. So let's look at, nothing like real time, right? I mean, I could draw static charts all day long. So look at down here. Notice my white 1 minute wave comes up and in all these moves until this one here, I don't get solid green. So in all of those moves there, all of this little up move fake here, up move fake here, there's 1, 2, those are false moves. Peak 3 is saying, hey, I've left the bottom. See, what I'm saying a false move is when we hit a bottom and turn around, and we're at an extreme, so we're down here very low. When it leaves the bottom, I would normally enter my trade. But I want my trend bars to agree. So even though I've got a trend bar hook back here, it's not a trade because there wasn't here. So what that does is it prevents me from entering the trade here, which as soon as I enter would turn around and take me out at -3. So it just prevented a -3. The next hook back up, which is right here, I don't get all green. So once again, I would enter the trade, it would go up and it would come down. Now I might have been able to stay in that one because we've got, look at our scale, 121, 12910, 12915. So these are 5 pip channels. So I might have been able to make that second one, but the power is the third one up, the third hook back, I finally get my green bars. And what you want to see here is how big is that candle. If that's a 5 pip channel, how big is that candle right there? What do you think? I would guess it is, Mark. Yeah, it's about 2 pips. So I'm going to get a candle close. I get my peak 3, I get my 1 minute peak to give me the hook back. I get my green bars. I'm in the trade on a candle close at 2 pips. It's ideal. We'll talk about that in a few minutes in terms of everything else. And now what happens is I get a 1-2 move. So this is my 1-2 move. And now I take off impulsively to 3. And look at that move. So you can't get any better of an example. We pull up a live chart that's current. And this thing just went 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45 plus pips, get 2 to get in. Still haven't gotten out. There's been a degree of pullback. Now my 10-minute wave is coming to an extreme. And so somewhere up in here, maybe even here, we could pull out as the 10-minute wave gets to extreme and the 1-minute wave starts coming back against us. If I had solid red pips there, I would say, hey, if I'm going to do a sell there, I might as well get out of my buy. So I would exit there. So we got in on a 2-pip candle close, and we exit there. Who would like to do 45 pips or 40 pips just in one trade, one day? Right? So this thing is very powerful in how it works. Does it always give us the trade we want? Absolutely not. And that's okay. But I'm going to show you how to get a whole bunch of trades that you don't even see on this chart. I've got some meat here that many of you are going to be blown away by. All right, so that was just, I have notes here. Go look at live charts and show a trade. I just did. That's as current as I can make it for you. All right, so we showed the waves. We talked about the size of them. We talked about what they are. Okay, so the reality is no lower level leading upper level, no sliders. You don't have to have the level of precision in terms of lower level leading upper level. I got my glasses on. Can't see that. Can't read my own writing. All right. So let's talk about that 1-2 wave. Let's talk about our 310 stop loss and how this works. So again, those of you who haven't plugged in a while, this is where we are, and we kind of combine the best of all worlds to give us an understanding of what we do and why we can do it. Remember, the goal that I went through many years ago, a decade ago, was I could learn the trade, but this is just mindless craziness because there's just no profit in it. I could be a master trader unless I had some huge account to start. It was going to take forever to get to my goals. And if somebody's trying to replace job level income, once they get hooked on the Forex, it's like gold fever. You know, they get Forex fever. They don't want to wait 2.5 years to replace their job. I mean, it's an admirable goal, and that's fine, but that's not what people want to do. And you know, just realize the old paradigm guys are going to think you're over-risking if you try and get it any faster. It's not over-risking. There's less risk. It's just the yield's so high because we understand the science. So let's look at this diagram a little. And I'm going to lose my 310 stop loss title here, but I'm just making this diagram a little bigger, that's all. So we have harmonic wave convergence. Normally in multi-wave, you would allow 2 pips. You want to see movement in your direction. That was the indicator that hopefully there'd be some burst in my direction. Was I would allow 2 pips. And so here we can use the TAB29 system to say in those 2 pips, do I have enough confirmation that this is really a trade? Do I got 29 indicators, or you know, how many ever, if I'm just dealing with 1 minute, you know, do I have enough indicators all saying the same thing? This is a safe time to enter a trade. Who am I to argue with them? You know, trend bars, 9 indicators. You got to dismiss your gut feelings. This is when a pilot leaves instruments and he's going on gut feeling, and 9 out of 10 of those end up in the side of the mountain. You have to trust your instruments. You have to trust your indicator here. The times it's wrong aren't going to be anywhere frequently enough for it to hurt you. So we have a typical, from harmonic wave convergence, we're going to have a 1-2 move. It's kind of required. Unless this is a retracement or a snake in the grass. It's not a retracement or a snake in the grass. I have positive movement in my direction. It pulls back. Now, where does this wave 2 form? Well, eSignal did a 10-year study, and what they found out was 73% of the time it fell between 50 and 61.8. That's when this thing actually ended and reversed. 15% of the time it was between 50 and 20%. 20% is the minimum per Elliott wave for this to be considered a wave 2. It has to pull back at least 20% before it can take off. And we see those from time to time. The reality is, per Elliott wave, this 2 wave can literally come all the way back down to the point of harmonic wave convergence. It can't go through it. It cannot go below the start of the 1 wave. Call it X. Can't go below that. We come right down to it. Most of the time, if you want to add the top one up here, most of the time between 20 and 61.8, that's 88% of the time. 12% of the time between 61.8 and 99.99999. But 73 is a pretty big amount to fall in just that zone. Pretty easy to put a Fibonacci on a move to see if I'm in that 50, 61.8 zone. But here's what has to happen from a trading perspective is you have to understand that if it does come back and go through this move, go through the point of harmonic wave convergence, it is no longer a two wave. What we really have happening is just this thing has extended itself. It's just extended itself out farther. So we had a move coming down, there was a little bit of breathing, and now it's going to go down deeper. So it's just a short term, and we should see that in our indicators as well. But sometimes we can't quite tell what's going on in here. So as a trader, what does that mean? It means if I'm up 12 pips here, I can't take myself out here as it comes back down to 10. Because if I want to get up here to 50, if I want to get up here to 80, if I want to get up here to 144, if I take myself out here, every time it starts coming back, I'm never going to get up there because this two wave has to form and turn around and go back up impulsively. And if I take myself out here every time, protecting that 12 pips, I'm never going to get these. Okay. All right, so we went a little long. I need to take a break. So about 5 minutes. I got about 30 minutes after the hour, so about 35 minutes after the hour, we're going to come back part 3. Give everybody a quick beverage and restroom break, or make a quick call, or make a quick email, and we'll be back.